Thank you for joining us for the Resist Imperialist Nuclear Threats Global Speak Out. It's hosted by the Resist US-led War Movement. We're very excited to be here with everyone and to get a picture on the ground around the whole world, what these current nuclear flashpoints look like, what US militarism, war, and aggression is shaping up to look like, and how the people are fighting back. My name is Carly Brooke, and I'm here with the Resist US-led War Movement. We are a global network of anti-war, anti-imperialist, and pro-peace organizations united on two main calls: to resist US-led war and to build just peace. And before we go too much further, we'd like to do orientation to our interpretation for today's event. Next slide, please. And we'll go one more. All right, so this will be a multilingual event today. We're conducting it in English, Bahasa, Korean, and Japanese. Thank you so much to all of our interpreters. We couldn't do this international work without you. To ensure everyone has access to the program in different languages, we'll give some instructions now. So if you look on your Zoom screen, at the bottom on the right, there should be a small globe logo or a world logo. If you press the globe and select the language that you want to listen to the webinar in, you can choose your language there. And if you have any problems, please just message the interpretation support in the chat and they can help you access the interpreter channels. Let's see, and then I'll invite our interpreters to just repeat that in the main channel, if you can explain. Let's start with Korean interpreter.
오늘 대화가 진행되고 있는 언어는 언제든지 전환될 수 있습니다. 콘텐츠를 듣고 싶은 언어 채널을 하단에 있는 그 아이콘을 클릭하여서 선택하실 수 있고, 혹시라도 기술적인 문제가 발생했을 경우에는 그 기술 담당자에게 메시지를 보내주시기 바랍니다. 기존에 있는 언어를 끄고 언어 채널에서 통역만 들으실 수 있습니다.
And next, the Japanese, please.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
皆さんどうもご来場いただきまして誠にありがとうございます。本イベントに関してはですね、Zoom ミーティングの画面の右端のところにですね、英語でインタープレテーションないしは、日本語で通訳翻訳などと、書かれてある、大きな地球儀のような形のマークがあるかと思います。こちらをクリックしていただきますと、日本語でしたりとか、あるいは先ほどそうですね、韓国語での、
Thank you so much. And now our Bahasa interpreter.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Jadi di bagian untuk membuka interpretasi itu ada di bagian bawah layar Zoom seperti tadi di instruksi slide sebelumnya. Itu ada bola dunia kecil dan nanti tinggal dipilih bahasa Indonesia. Kalau ada masalah bisa dikirim pesan chat dalam Zoom, room Zoom kepada teknisi, ada tulisan tech TECH itu dihubungi sebagai teknisi. Kalau untuk dalam handphone itu di tab paling bawah sebelah pojok kanan ada titik 3, di situ nanti ada interpretasi bola dunia, itu dipilih bahasa Indonesia. Dalam bahasa penggunaan dalam pendiskusian akan berubah kapan saja, nanti dipilih sesuaikan bahasa yang mau dicari, apakah bahasa Indonesia atau bahasa Inggris. Jika ada masalah teknis tadi disampaikan, dan kalau ada apapun nanti terlalu cepat ataupun terlalu lambat, silakan disampaikan di chat juga. Terima kasih.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. So yes, everyone should please choose an interpretation channel so that you can understand the program in those languages. And just let us know if you have any trouble. So we'll give our interpreters a moment to get set up in their channels, and then once we're good to go, maybe just thumbs up in the chat. And we can get going. So yes, once again, thank you to our language justice team for interpreting the program today. A reminder to our speakers, please speak slowly and clearly so that the interpreters can relay the important messages into all of the languages being offered today. And welcome to everyone who was able to join us today for the Global Speak Out Against Imperialist Nuclear Threats. We're very happy to be here together from all corners of the world to unite in our struggle and to learn the conditions on the ground from all around the world. Next slide, please.
제가 지금 말을 할까요?
Can you go to the resist intro slide, please? Back.
말을 하면 되겠습니까, 제가?
Should be the second slide. All right, so we'll give a quick introduction now that we have our interpretation going. So yes, a quick introduction to the Resist US-led war movement. We are a global network of anti-war, anti-imperialist, and pro-peace organizations, and we are united on two main calls. The first is to resist US-led war, which includes all aspects of war and militarism, including genocide, foreign invasions, occupations, sanctions, military exercises, militarized borders, and other forms of violent repression. And we focus on that which is enacted by or funded by or directed by the United States and its allies. And our second point of unity is to build just peace through justice and social equity and solidarity amongst peoples. This includes the right and recognition of self-determination, economic and food sovereignty, and self-defense of nations and oppressed peoples from reactionary aggression and violence. And if you are interested in being a part of this network, all you have to do is agree with these 2 points of unity, and we would love to work together to fight against US-led war. A quick introduction to our program. Today, we will be able to get an introduction to a global campaign that links struggles around the world called the Anti-Militarism Agenda. We'll hear from speakers and we'll hear cultural offerings from around the world, and I'll introduce the speakers as we hear each one of them. And then at the end, we'll close with calls to action. So yes, we're here tonight and today, really to understand this moment on the 80th anniversary of the nuclear bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but to also understand that the US has never stopped escalating its nuclear threats. So that's why we're here to hear from people around the world to speak out against imperialist nuclear threats. Earlier this year, Resist launched a campaign called the Anti-Militarism Agenda with the aim of strengthening movements against wars of aggression and building solidarity with people's movements, asserting their collective democratic rights, self-determination, and social and national liberation. This anti-militarism agenda presents priority calls to action, key struggles against US-led war and militarism being waged around the world by many people and organizations. This agenda includes political education, advocacy, mass movement building, anti-war struggles, and networks that expose the interests of the US war machine and its allies and proxies around the world, and helps us have a united direction to fight against the biggest threats responsible for today's wars of aggression, and to advance our united anti-war, anti-militarism agenda towards building a just peace. Today's Global Speak Out addresses the topic of imperialist nuclear threats, a subject which addresses many of the calls in our agenda. There are some specifically here on the slide that you can learn more about on our website, resistusledwarmovement.com. But some of the key calls for action in the agenda include these: reparations, cleanup, and justice for victims of wars and militarism, including those who are affected by nuclear legacies, to halt wasteful and dangerous weapons development, and to demand nuclear disarmament of imperialist states towards complete abolition. So we'll hear more about these thoughts from people around the world. And please take a look at the anti-militarism agenda and see if you see good opportunities for us to work together. We know that the entire history of US weapons development and nuclear weapons, from cradle to grave, at every step along the supply chain of nuclear weapons production, is a story of exploitation and destruction. And today we're conducting this Speak Out on the anniversary of a turning point in the tactics of imperialist war making. As many know, on August 6th, 1945, the United States dropped a uranium core atomic bomb on Hiroshima, instantly incinerating most of the city. This nuclear blast, radiation, and resulting firestorms killed 90,000 people immediately, with the death toll surpassing 100,000 by the end of 1945. And just 3 days later, on August 9th, the US struck again, obliterating Nagasaki with a plutonium bomb, which killed 40,000 people on impact, while another 70,000 perished by the year's end from burns and injuries and radiation poisoning, bringing the death toll to nearly 200,000. After 80 years, survivors and their descendants continue to suffer from the bombing's horrific after effects, cancers, birth defects, and generational trauma. But we know that the Japanese and US governments have denied full state compensation and proper medical care and truly abandoned those who've endured this imperialist atrocity. And we can really see a stark example of US imperialism and its weapons destructive power. Since 1945, US imperialism has been the greatest driver of nuclear proliferation, from the Cold War arms race with the Soviet Union to its current triad of nuclear weapons and its fronts of war. The US has repeatedly used its nuclear arsenal to intimidate and suppress adversaries. This strategy has only reinforced the lesson that nuclear deterrence may be the only reliable safeguard against American aggression, and recent history underscores this reality. So today we'll hear about presentations from different flashpoints, and these really reflect the US's broader military strategy and its fight to be the sole hegemonic imperialist power in the world. So some of the fronts that we'll hear about, in Eastern Europe, the US is waging an imperialist proxy war against Russia, using NATO as its main ally. It's using its alliances with Israel in West Asia to target Iran and the regional resistance. And it's using its web of alliances in the Pacific and Asia, including Australia, UK, US, or AUKUS, the Japan, South Korea, US, or JACUS, and the Japan, Philippines, and US, or JAFIS, the Quad, many types of alliances to target China and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. And we know all three fronts are marked by the threat of nuclear weapons, principally instigated by the US. What we'll hear about today is cases of nuclear blackmail. That's the only thing we can think of to call it, aggressive blackmail against its rivals in the region, and blatantly dragging the people who would be affected by a nuclear catastrophe into wars they never asked for. But we'll also hear about the resistance that has never wavered, knowing that US aggression will never bring peace, as people unearth the history and survive the legacy of nuclear weapons from Hiroshima to Nagasaki and current fronts of US-led war, we come face to face with the fundamental contradiction of nuclear warfare. While imperialist powers use atomic weapons to threaten and dominate, anti-imperialist states have developed them to prevent further war on their people. Thousands have engaged in advocacy efforts around the world to reduce the US nuclear triad, to demand cleanup and compensation for damages, and to block the US's $1.7 trillion modernization scheme. With today's Global Speak Out, we hope to contribute to building the anti-imperialist sentiment of the people uniting against US nuclear threats. And today we'll hear from speakers who will explain their struggles and campaigns, how people can act in solidarity with their fights. And with that, I'm honored to introduce our first speaker. Can we go to the next slide, please? So I'm excited to hear from Sakoda Hidefumi, who is part of the Secretariat of the Asia-wide Campaign Japan Committee and supports Sanrizuka Toso, the farmers' struggle against the construction of the Narita Airport, International Airport that has continued since 1967. And AWC consists of East Asian countries, including organizations like Bayan Philippines, AWC South Korea Committee, the Labor Rights Association in Taiwan, and AWC Japan Committee. It's an organization that acts against the military and economic invasion to Asian countries and areas by the US and Japanese imperialism and builds solidarity among people in Asia and all over the world. So with that, we'd love to welcome you, Sakura-san. Um, thank you so much for being with us. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, I am Sagoda Hidefumi. I will start my report. But I will speak in Japanese, sorry. But Teratani will help me. And
Uh,
では始めます。被爆
so
80年、
let's
私たちは
start.
広島、長崎を忘れない。朝鮮人
We
少
will never forget Hiroshima and Nakashima, as well as the Koreans, Chinese, as well as Allies prisoners of war who were also caught within this disaster. And we will also never forget the imperialism that led to this kind of disaster. And so now we'll go to the next slide. And はい。問題ないです。少しだけペースを落としていただければ助かります。で、先ほど、なんでしょう、大まかな内容をお伝えしたかと。
私を返せ。私につながる人間を返せ。人間の世のある限り、崩れぬ平和を返せ。
So, this is a poem by
Next, please.
Togekan Sankichi. The English is to the right. Next, please.
1945年8月の広島と長崎の原爆被害です。で、8月6日、広島で約14万 14万人が殺害され
This
ました。
depicts the situation
この他、長崎
regarding
で
the
約
disaster
7万人が殺害されました。
about the atomic bombings.
日本人だけではなく、朝鮮人数
So
万
the
人、
point here
中
is
国
that
人数百
the
人、
people who
連合
were
軍
who
捕
lost their
虜
lives
数
were
百人、
not only Japanese, as you
外
can
国
see,
人、
but
市民数十人が死亡し
on
まし
the
た。
on the on the
アメリカ
6th
は自国
and
民
also
の
on the
軍
9th,
連
we
合
have
捕虜の死亡を織り
a
込み
large
ま
amount
した。
of Japanese
で、この
personnel
絵
who
は、
lost their lives.
この
However,
その当
it
時
is
の、
important to keep in
状況
mind
を
that
描いたです。
Allied prisoners of war, who, as well as Chinese and also Korean
Next, please.
individuals, also lost their lives. This is the English translation.
で、帝国主義戦争が原子爆弾投下をもたらしました。1931年、日本
So
帝国主義
this
が中
atomic
国
bombing
領
was
土を侵
caused
略、
by
翌年
imperialism
満州国を建国しました。
or an
1931
obsession
年、
with
中国侵略戦
the
争が始
arms
まりました。
race. And as you can see,
1938年から
from
40年に天皇
1931,
制
we
覇時
have
代の体制が確立されました。
the Japanese invasion
1941
of
年、アジア
northeastern
侵略
area of
戦争及
China,
び第
and
二
right
次
after
帝国
that,
主義戦争が起こりました。
the founding of Manchuria.
1945年3月、米軍の沖縄上陸
And
によ
thus,
り、
so
日本の各地で空襲が相次ぎますが、
begins
防空体制が不全でした。
imperialism.
日本軍は戦力をほとんど失い、敗戦は確定していましたが、
Something important to keep in mind
そ
is
して
that
ソ連の
although the
第
Japanese
二次大戦
forces
数日
were
前に 広島と長崎へ原爆が投下されました。
had foreseen
ア
themselves
メ
in
リカ
an
の狙いは2つあ
absolutely
りました。1つ
inevitable
はソ連
situation
へ
of
の牽制、
defeat,
2つはアジア
they
人への
delayed
実態実
this
行でした。
acceptance of defeat as long as
Next,
possible.
please. 自衛隊は台湾有事で核戦争を想定しています。2024年2月、日米共同統合演習の机上演習のキーンエッジ
Last
の
year,
中で、
February, there
中
was a
国は
joint
初めて
exercise
仮想
conducted
敵国
by
として
Japanese and
台
American
湾有
forces.
事を想定しました。
And this exercise was about a situation
最
called
終版で、
Taiwan Emergency.
中国の指導者が
This is a
日
situation where
米に
China
核
declares
兵
war
器
on
使用を思い
Taiwan
出す発
and
言を
Taiwan
した
declares
こ
so,
のス
putting
ト
the
ーリー
world
に
at
発展
risk
しまし
of
た。
a very
事
large
態がエスカレートすることを危惧したアメリカ側は、当初慎重姿勢で具体的な対抗策を取りま
However,
せんでした。
during these
だ
exercises,
が、防衛省
the
制服
final
組トッ
draft
プの
started
吉
a
田祐史
simulation of
統合
where
幕僚長が日本の防衛のた
where
め、アメリカも
leader
核
of
の傘に
China
対
would
抗してほ
blame
しいと繰り返し
Japan
求め、 米
would
軍
blame
側トッ
Japanese
プの
leaders
イ
for
ンド太
having
平洋軍
nuclear
のアキリ
weapons,
ーノ司令官
or they would
氏が
spread rumors
最終
about
的に
this,
同意しました。これを
escalating
受け、アメリカ
the
政府高官が
situation in
核
the
使用を
Pacific.
示唆する発言をしました
However,
が、
this kind of
最終
simulation is
的に
extremely
米
dangerous
中とも
and
核
did
兵器を
not
使用しません
come
でした。
to light.
核をめぐっては、日本の外務防衛当局間の拡大抑止協議で、米軍による核使用のシナリオを議論していたことが判明しました。これは東京新聞からの引用です。
And also, the information here is provided by Tokyo Shimbun, Tokyo newspaper.
で、核武装準備のために原子力発電は始まりました。日本は核兵器を持たず、
So,
作らず、持ち込ま
the
せず
reason
非核三原
Japan
則の基
has
本
nuclear
方針
power
としてい
plants
ま
is
す
to
が、
create nuclear weapons
原
or
発から出る使用済み核燃料は核兵器の原料になり得ます。
a
使
moment,
用済み
please.
核燃料から出たプルトニウムは2023年末時点で約
So currently, at the end of
44.5トンで、
2023,
原爆
Japan
約
has
5600
extracted
発分
around
です。
44.5 tons of plutonium,
2012年に
which
は
is
原子
more than
力
enough
基
to
本法が
create
改正されました。原
5,600
子力
atomic
の利用を目
bombs.
的に
Not
我が
only
国
that,
の安
Japan
全
has
保障に資
recently
するという文言が追加され
revised
ました。
their
これ
basic
は
laws
今後
regarding
軍事利用する可能
how to
性
use
が
nuclear
持
energy.
たれたことを意味します。
And the way
そ
they
してま
revised
た
the
核兵
contract
器
was
製造技術
they
は
have
我
now
が国において
managed
す
to
でに確立されています。
add something, add a sentence which
Next, please.
adds, which repurposes, manages repurposing to nuclear weapons. Next slide, please.
私たちの主張です。 被爆者、被爆2世、3世と連帯し、すべての核兵器と原子力発
Within
電
this
所を廃
slide
絶しよう。帝
are
国主義の核独占支配体
opinions.
制である核兵器不
So
拡
first
散
of
条約
all,
改
we
正を
would
発
like
案
to
しよ
work
う。
together with
全
those
世
who
界
have
の労働者民衆は国境を
bombs,
越えて団結し、
and we
帝
would
国
like
主義が推
to
進
get
す
rid
る
of all
軍事同
these
盟と核抑
nuclear
止
power
力をはじめと
plants,
する
as
軍の
well
増強に断固
as
反対しよう。米国政府は被爆者、被爆2世、3世に謝罪と保障を行い、日本帝国主義の核武装反対。日本政府は核兵器禁止条約に署名し、批准しろ。帝国主義を打倒しよう。Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sakura-san. I think the poem that you shared is really powerful. The line that stood out to me is, "Give us back our peace, which should remain undisturbed for as long as humanity exists." And it makes me think, like you said, what's disturbing this peace? It's really US imperialist war and aggression and its drive to dominate the world. And with that, we we really have to take these calls to action so seriously. Um, and to look at what is backing up this monopoly system, what is backing up this imperialist system is US nuclear weapons and nuclear threats. So thank you for sharing the history, but also the current struggles. And we bring our solidarity to that fight, to oppose nuclear armament, and to pressure the Japanese and US imperialist governments, to give up their biggest guns so that they can stop dominating. Um, yes, so thank you so much. We'll bring that conversation into the next speaker as well. It's also my honor to
Is my
introduce.
voice there?
Yes, we can
I
hear
think
you.
I got disconnected.
Oh, yes, we hear you. Can you hear me still? Yes, we can hear you, Hamid.
It seems that I'm disconnected, unfortunately.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
It's possible.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I lost the meeting.
We can hear you.
Okay. Please, I was just connected. Just let me know when I'm supposed to speak.
Okay, we will. Yes, I'll just give an introduction to Hamid Sharabi, who was educated in political science in Iran. He'll be bringing us some updates, and analysis of a very urgent part of the world where US nuclear threats are present, where nuclear aggression is very clear. Uh, Hamid was a political activist in exile in the US, fighting against the CIA-backed Shah's repressive regime. He was an organizer for the Committee for Artistic and Intellectual Freedom in Iran, or CAIFI, which struggled for the freedom of political detainees. And then in the 80s, he was the manager of Solidarity Publications. He is currently the co-founder and research director at the House of Latin America, based in Iran, and is promoting achievements of liberation movements in the countries of Alba. So yes, we're really excited to hear from you, and the floor is yours, Hamid. Let's see, not sure if you can hear us. Are you able to unmute and speak? I know, oh yes, can you hear us?
Hamid, can you hear us?
Hello.
Yeah, I think you can speak now if you want.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Because I got lost with the meeting, but here we go.
Yes,
Uh,
thank you.
Greetings to all, dear comrades and friends. I thank the organizers of this important webinar, and I thank them for inviting me to share my thoughts on this important question that we are discussing today. Well, they claimed that they attacked our country, Iran, because we were developing atomic bombs. A totally unfounded assertion, denied not only by Iran, but also refuted by the United States intelligence community itself. In this instance of blaming the victim to justify its victimization, Iran is not alone. This has been a recurring theme throughout history, especially when it comes to imperialist aggression. Let us examine this fact in the context of the wars launched by the United States since the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki as we approach the 80th anniversary of that tragic event. After the triumph of Chinese Revolution, conditions were created for the capitalist government in South Korea to lose power. To prevent this, the South Korean government, with United States approval, launched several attacks on North Korea between 1949 and 1950. When North Korea began to defend itself, the United States intervened directly in a military conflict that resulted in the death of approximately 30% of the North Korean population. This occurred, like all other imperialist atrocities, under the guise of defending democracy and human rights, while demonizing the victim as the villain. In 1961, we witnessed the military attack on Cuba, known as the Day of Pigs invasion, where United States military planes were painted to resemble the Cuban Navy, a false flag operation to disguise United States aggression. This invasion was defeated in just 3 days, thanks to the heroic response of the Cuban People's Army under Fidel Castro's direct command. 3 years later, in 1964, the United States claimed that its destroyer, the USS Maddox, was attacked by 3 North Vietnamese torpedo boats, an allegation later proven to be false and fabricated, as even former United States Secretary of Defense Robert S. McNamara admitted. The pattern of false accusations against perceived enemies continues to this day. During the so-called war on drugs in South America in the 1970s, during the invasion of Grenada in 1983, the occupation of Panama in 1989, and the wars in Afghanistan from 2001 to 2021, Iraq from 2003 to 2011, Libya in 2011, Syria in 2014, and now Iran, where once again the narrative suggests that the victim is to blame for its own victimization. Thus, our first task remains clear: to explore these lies, to expose these lies, and spread the truth about imperialist wars. At the heart of this conflict lies a straightforward motive: the drive to maintain hegemony, domination, and exploitation. In West Asia, this agenda has been largely assigned to the Zionist state since Israel's inception, which exhibits all the hallmarks of fascism, racism, and brutal suppression, as evidenced by the ongoing genocide in Gaza over the past 22 months. What we are witnessing now is an escalation and intensification of imperialist and Zionist wars, starkly contrasting with what Trump promised during his election campaign for a second term. We have seen these unfold in Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, Palestine, Ukraine, and just weeks ago in Iran. Military threats against China and independent nations in Africa, Asia, and Latin America continue to rise. Meanwhile, we are witnessing a growing resistance against imperialist wars. I would like to make some brief comments about this resistance in West Asia, a region that has been at the center of imperialist aggressions for decades. This resistance movement, despite its ups and downs and the severe blows it has received in Lebanon and Syria, despite the slaughter of tens of thousands of innocent people, including defenseless women and children, has proven to be powerful, limitless, and promising. Let us ask, where does this power come from? And how is it manifested? It arises from deep beliefs and religious faith rooted in liberation theology, powerful nationalist sentiments, as a resolute commitment to defending self-determination and sovereignty, and above all, unshakable solidarity and unity among diverse groups. Nowadays, we have Gaza as the symbol of resistance, not only in West Asia, but also in the whole globe. We have Lebanon that has remained faithful to Nasrallah, a martyr who will be remembered in history of liberation movements forever. We have Yemen, who is helping an inspiring role in defending Palestine tirelessly with all its might and possibilities. And then we have Iran, who, by helping the formation of a united movement in West Asia and by hitting back hardly the Zionist regime and United States, has become a source of hope for oppressed people throughout the world. This is the situation. We are facing a changing world in which the resistance movement in the West Asia is acting as a dynamic force, an endless force, a decisive force that has support of the world public opinion, the support of China, Russia, and independent nations all over Asia, Africa, and Latin America. A movement that constitutes a major component of the growing multipolar world order. Let us stand firm in support of such movement. Long live resistance. We shall prevail. Thank you again for allowing me to participate in this very important webinar.
Long live the resistance. Victory to the people around the world fighting oppression, US wars, and aggression. Thank you so much, Hamid. It's really true. No matter what type of lies, what type of blaming, what type of manipulation the United States places in its strategy and its wars, its brutal genocide and war crimes from Gaza to Syria to Lebanon to Yemen, and the most recent attacks on the sovereign people of Iran, all around the world. No matter what tools the US will use, with its infinite sources of weapons, its infinite domination, it's true that no one can take away the self-determination of the people. No one can take away the struggle for liberation. And the people in the region of West Asia are truly paying an enormous sacrifice, but also inspiring the people all around the world to continue fighting for real freedom. And it's that resistance and steadfastness that gives us hope every day. So thank you so much for your contribution. We're with you. We're with everyone who will stand up and fight back in the face of US threats and imperialism, every day. So thank you so much. We're going to turn back to the Asia Pacific region again and hear from a comrade from the Republic of Korea. We'd like to welcome next Phil Yoon Hyun, who is the director of the US-based Recovery Institute based in Pyeongtaek, South Korea. For 3 years, the US-based Recovery Institute has held protests demanding the withdrawal of US troops from South Korea at the main gate of US Camp Humphreys military base every day. Every day. Since 2020, the Institute has been conducting weekly surveillance activities on the Songtan Air Base and Camp Humphreys and is publicly releasing reports on their activities. So we're so excited to hear from you, Hyun, about the conditions and how people are in the struggle against US war in Korea. Welcome.
예, 안녕하세요. My name is 현필경. I live in 평택 city. 말씀을 드리겠습니다. 저희가 살고 있는 평택시는 평택 미군기지와 송탄 미군기지와
Pyeongtaek City is a military city, home to two major U.S. military bases and the Republic of Korea Navy's second Fleet Command.
아까 말씀하셨던 캠프 험프리와
In Pyeongtaek, we do have U.S. Camp Humphrey and U.S. Osan U.S. Air Force Base.
2015년 5월
2015 May,
서울 용산기지에서 탄저균, 지카 바이러스 등 무기 실험을 한다는
in
듣고
the entire nation was shocked to learn
저희들은 깜짝 놀랐습니다.
that U.S. forces Korea had conducted biological weapons experiments, including those involving anthrax and Zika virus at Songtan U.S. Air Force Base and the Yongsan Garrison in Seoul. In 2017, The deployment of the THAAD missile defense system to Korea was wanted to serve the interest of U.S. hegemony in East Asia.
미군의 작전 계획에 한국 군인 숫자를 맞추고 작전 수행을 무기들을 미국에서 구매를 해야만 합니다. 평택 미군 기지에서는 새벽 2시 30분경에는 전날 정찰을 나왔던 정찰기가
In Pyeongtaek Base, special reconnaissance aircraft that flew missions the day before return around 2:30 a.m. Starting around 4:30 a.m., the vehicles of U.S. military personnel and staff begin lining up at the gate. From 7:20 a.m., RC-12X guardrail reconnaissance aircraft begin taking off, followed by RC-7 aircraft at 9 a.m. Curious about the frequency of these flights, I came to understand that they are part of preparation for electronic warfare. These aircraft collect not only military, rather communication signals from North Korea, China, and Russia, but even remote control signals from televisions and home appliances. Under the command of a U.S. general who currently serves as the commander of USFK, the United States Command, and ROK-US Combined Forces Command are 22 U.S. and ROK generals, more than 17,000 U.S. troops, 2,000 ROK troops across 50 branches, and approximately 25,000 staff and family members live and work on the base and in the surrounding area. The land for the base was originally a tidal flat. In the early 2000s, as the expanded, land belonging to residents of the neighboring village of Daechuri was expropriated. These residents had already been displaced by the Japanese military in 1937 and were forced to relocate once again, 2 or 3 times by the U.S. military. This is an indefinite rent-free list. Although a sewage treatment facility exists next to the base, the waste and sewage from the base flow out into the local area, and it is the South Korean public that must manage the cleanup. Around 100 Apache attack helicopters, Black Hawk multi-purpose helicopters, and CH-47 heavy lift helicopters used by special forces for ground assault and decapitation strike exercises are stationed here.
초등학교 건설 중인 미군은 2개 단위 근무를 2년 단위 근무를 3년으로 연장하겠다는 것입니다. 동두천 미군 기지에도 순환 배치구에
The U.S. military is currently building a third elementary school on base, expected to open this September, and plans to extend the standard tour of duty from 2 to 3 years. They recently spent $2.2 million renovating headquarters for rotational forces at the Dongcheon base. Since October, Songtan U.S. Air Force Base has retired its fleet of 24 A-10 Warhogs and replaced them with 2 super squadrons consisting of 62 F-16 fighters consolidated from Kunsan Air Base and Misawa Air Base in Japan. The commander of Songtan Air Base also serves as the deputy commander of USFK. Approximately 5,500 US troops are stationed here, and the base falls under the command structure of the US Indo-Pacific Command. Within Indo-PACOM's operational area, Songtan is a critical frontline base, now hosting Space Force units as well.
매일 교대로 한반도에서 산둥반도를 거쳐 상하이와 대만까지 오르내리며 영상과 각종 전자 신호들을 수집하고 있습니다. 이들은 필리핀이나 말레이시아
Three U-2 high altitude reconnaissance aircraft operate in rotation daily, flying from Korea past the Shandong Peninsula to Shanghai and Taiwan, collecting imagery and electronic signals. These aircraft sometimes spoof civilian airline call signs from countries like the Philippines or Malaysia to conceal reconnaissance operations over China.
각종 전투기들과 첨단 특수기들이 드나들며 전쟁 연습을 벌이고 이 기지의 전투기들도 필리핀과 인도, 알래스카까지 가서 훈련을 벌입니다. 미공군이 가장 심혈을 기울이는 작전이 민첩한 전투 결합, 분산된 전력의
The U.S. Air Force current strategy focus on agile combat employment, which promotes a flexible combat posture through the dispersion of forces to avoid concentrated damage. This strategy explains the recent controversy surrounding new airport construction across South Korea.
주일 미군은 해병대와 해군이 강하고 주한미군은
U.S. forces in Japan and USFK both operate under Indo-PACOM's strategic plans. USFJ emphasizes marine and naval forces, while USFK focuses on army capabilities. Together, they form a comprehensive strike force. The Japan Ground Self-Defense Force has recently begun preparing for rapid deployments in alignment with this strategy.
4월 15일, 16일
On April 15, 16, the U.S. Army's Nuclear and WME Countermeasures Unit held in first course in Seoul for officers from the ROK Strategic Command, the Ministry of National Defense, and the ROK US Combined Forces Command.
재래식 핵 통합을 진전시키고 핵 시나리오를 포함한 연합 도상훈련의 참가자들이 효과적으로 임할 수 있도록 전문 지식을 제공하는 것이라고 합니다. 미국의 전략 폭격기 B-52가 한국 공군과 일본
US B-52 bombers frequently fly over the Korean peninsula, escorted by ROKAF and JSDF fighters. Intercontinental ballistic missile test drills are also conducted from the U.S. mainland into the Pacific Ocean.
인도 태평양에서의 중국을 누르고 세계 패권을
The U.S. military's actions in the Indo-Pacific aimed at preserving global hegemony by containing China are escalating rapidly. Allies are being drawn into these conflicts, risking becoming expendable pawns. We have no reason to sacrifice our lives at the wars of the U.S. empire. The people
동아시아 민중의 세계 평화 체제를 만들어야 합니다.
of Asia can live in peace, cooperating and exchanging with one another in harmony. We must build an East Asian people's peace regime. The courage and solidarity of our comrades give us strength.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hyun. Hearing about the diligent work and monitoring the deep knowledge that you have, lending toward that resistance is also giving us strength. Um, yes, it's so incredible to learn how intense the military occupation of South Korea still is, that the Korean War has never ended, and that a ceasefire is not the same thing as liberation. The scale of the occupation there is really horrifying, and like you said, it's the U.S. pivot to Asia. It's the ongoing island chain strategy and the amount of exercises, troops, weaponry, and deployment of forces and bases um, really shows what the US is willing to do to a sovereign people to prepare for a war with its adversaries. So thank you for the call for an East Asian people's peace region. I think that's the right direction. That's how we can coordinate with each other and improve and learn from the diligent experience of the US-based Recovery Institute to understand how the US is building up for war. And then that gives us information on how we can target and fight back and take down US militarism in our homelands. So thank you so much for your contribution today. Um, we're going to continue in the Pacific region from the Speak Out today. So we'll go to our next speaker. Um, I get to have the honor to welcome Monica de Oro, who is an Indigenous Chamorro mother, climate and peace activist, educator, and dedicated community organizer based in the Mariana Islands. She's currently a Just Transition Curriculum and Policy Fellow with the Climate Justice Alliance, where she co-coordinates community-based solutions with member organization Micronesia Climate Change Alliance. She's very involved in efforts to uplift the experiences of Pacific Islanders on the front lines of the climate crisis. And it's a great honor to have you here. We'll give you the floor. Thank you.
Happening, can you hear me? You can go ahead and go to the next slide as I sort of just hearing all the other speakers speak about their struggle. I'm really feeling called to share a little bit of a chant and prayer for our communities around the world, especially those who have been impacted by war and who are continuously enduring aggression and violence in their lands, especially if they're indigenous to those lands. So this is a little bit of a chant from the Chamorro language and the language of my ancestors of the Mariana Islands. Owasain, Owaniti, Nino Maiha Minas Nunzan, Ninaule. Owasain, Owaniti, Nino Maiha Minas Nunzan, Ninaule. This short prayer and powerful prayer is one that just asks our ancestors to come to us and aid our assistance and the Creator, the one that lifts us all up towards life, to protect us, to ensure that we're surviving and thriving for generations to come, and then ask for just the goodness of life to continue to be in abundance wherever we may go and wherever we may be. My name is Manyaka Dioro. I'm with the Micronesia Climate Change Alliance. This is a group of Indigenous Pacific Islanders throughout Micronesia whose commitment is to uplifting our island communities to create cultural centered solutions that protect and heal our sacred islands and our waters and our peoples. You can go to the next slide, please. And just for some context, I'm from the Mariana Islands, which is one of the first places in the Pacific to have been met with the wrath of colonization. And it is one of the oldest colonies, especially the island of Guahan or Guam, which I'm most familiar with. In the Mariana Islands, it was the first place to make contact with European colonization. And Wuhan and the Marianas has continuously, for centuries now, been used as a colonial strategic point, especially as we are most often used and referred to as the tip of the spear in any U.S. military in the U.S. military context. And for the Chamorro people, we're not just a positioning place. This is our homeland. These lands and waters that we're so blessed to inherit. These small little specks on the map, as you can see, that are very close to the Asian continent, represent so much more than just a military base or a refueling ground or a unsinkable ship. And these are all ways that our islands have been referred to by US imperialistic agendas. And we are not just, we're often told, Micronesia is often told that we're far-flung, remote islands, but there's nothing micro about us in Micronesia. We are large ocean states, and there's so much that we have, so much wisdom that we have that we can share with the world, especially when it comes to living within our means, to using the environment to better serve people on planet and to steward the environment for future generations, especially now in a time of ongoing climate disasters. It's really important that we return to ancestral ways of being. I'm sorry if what's on screen right now is a bunch of different maps that sort of show the positionality of the Marianas as a strategic geopolitical location, as it is just 1,000 miles, about 1,200 miles south of Japan, 1,200 miles east of the Philippines. And so just wanting to ensure that people understand how close we are to also the Asian mainland, especially given the US influence. And the island of Guam, you can go to the next slide, and the Northern Marianas and all of Micronesia right now are under hyper-militarization. There's billions and billions of dollars being spent to continuously build a Pacific Iron Curtain, if you will, in case of any Asian aggression to the United States and the continental United States. And since World War II, the islands of the Marianas and in the Marshall Islands have been major players in the building up of the nuclear arsenal and the testing of weapons. Our islands have been used time and time again as sacrifice zones. Actually, the island of Tinian, where I spent a year living and working as a high school teacher, which is just 5 miles south of where I live right now in Saipan, was the island that where the 2 atomic bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki almost 80 years ago were loaded and transported from. And so we have a very intimate connection to the nuclear, fallout from both the testing and the actual use of military weapons to kill hundreds of thousands of innocent people. And so that legacy of not only housing, training, and storing nuclear weapons has also degraded our lands, our cultures, and have left so much of our lands and waters and air sick. And as such, so much of our peoples are also sick and contaminated from that contamination. Just late last year, a group of Chamorro people who've been petitioning for a very long time with an organization called PARS, they refer to themselves as downwinders, were able to get some recognition that the Chamorro people were also victims of the atomic testing in the Marshall Islands, as the winds from the Marshall Islands blow pretty straight across the ocean and impact our people pretty critically. And so we know from just the legacy of cancer in our communities that the military's testing is one, and the use of weapons is one that is not good for people or for planet, and should definitely be reconsidered and stopped whenever and wherever possible. and our communities have been resisting all these sorts of endeavors for generations. We can go to the next slide. Um, and so I just wanted to highlight and uplift all the different ways that Micronesia and our islands are being used for testing and for storing and for training of the U.S. military and allied forces today. We just in the last week, we ended REFOR-PAC, which was 6 weeks of over 10,000 troops from all over the region, performing hundreds of air tests, dropping many bombs on our island of Faranda Indonesia, and just all types of disruptions, especially in our airspace and in the waters. And it was one that our community really didn't have any say around. And it was one that spanned Guam, the Northern Mariana Islands, Palau, and definitely something that is disruptive and desecrates our lands and waters. And all these different, you see these different, these are all military plans on the screen right now, specifically for the Mariana Islands, which constitute billions of dollars of investments, where many military contractors are very hungry to develop our lands and waters, and at the detriment of the native people. Right now, we have an extreme housing crisis on the island of Guam, more than ever in my lifetime. More native people are homeless, and the cost of living is just exorbitantly high, and it's definitely hard to compete with all the different military personnel who come to our island who get cost of living allowances that kind of up the rental market beyond the means of our people, where the minimum wage is only $10, not even $10 an hour. And we have been overwhelmed by a bunch of different environmental impact statements over the last 15 years now. And having our community, which English is our second language, respond to very technically heavy jargon language of it has been so difficult to do. And it's one that we are experiencing fatigue around. And right now there's 3 different EISs that we're being asked to respond to, thousands of pages that outline different plans for our community, mostly in the Mariana Islands, but also there's been some relief in Palau, the island of Yap, in the Federated States of Micronesia. And yes, it's just overwhelming how many different projects are being proposed across our island. And they're all treated as different projects, and the cumulative impacts of all these different training aren't really considered. And these trainings altogether amass to the largest U.S. military training, if not the largest, just point blank military training in the world, in which over 1 million square miles of air and water are being used for testing and training of weapons. The one that's most alarming, especially because of its nuclear issues, is the one that was just released a few days ago, which is the Guam 360-degree missile defense system, which includes over 30 different sites for missile defense deployment and protection from any potential missiles coming from Asia. And this includes nuclear powered facilities, one in which our community will be very vulnerable to. And we recognize too that these systems don't make us safer; they make us more vulnerable, and they put targets over our back. But of course, our communities are in dire economic straits, and so many of our political leaders are kowtowing to the military industrial complex and welcoming these really horrific investments onto our sacred lands and waters. And it's just really disheartening to see, especially knowing that the legacy of that contamination has brought to communities, and the risk far outweigh the rewards when it comes to military. And we see that in other places like Hawaii and even on the island of Guam itself. World War II has devastated the ecology of the island of Guam. So many invasive species has harmed the local bird populations, and there's been so much other environmental impact that far outweigh any any sort of benefit. One of the most clear risks to the future of our islands is the risk of contamination to our sole source of water, of drinking water in the northern aquifer lens, and that's where many new weapons will be tested and trained with at a complex of different firing ranges on the northern plateau of Guam, right above our sacred lands at Litexian, which is or Reptilian, which is where a land struggle fight where um, uh, indigenous land owners have been fighting for those lands to be returned for over 6 generations, and it's one that is really near and dear to our struggle right now because both the missile defense system and the activation of the fifth firing range is going to continue to disrupt access to our sacred lands where we practice ceremony, where we gather medicine, and which are very abundant fishing grounds. And so any more constriction to our access to these precious sites is continues to just put a chokehold on our ability to live our indigenous lifeways and practice who we are as a people. We can go to the last page. And so, especially wanting to uplift the fight of the indigenous, the original landowners at the Texan, we've been doing a lot of different work to reignite our people's sense of responsibility and sense of reverence to our lands in the form of ceremony. Not only does the U.S. military impact our lands and waters, but also our people. We have incredibly high rates of people who enlist in the military, so it's even a really difficult task at hand as organizers to contest with the sense of loyalty that our community has to the military. My own father is a veteran, and so many of our community members and family members have had careers generations in at this point with the U.S. military, and so many other people also work for the civil service part of the military mission in our region, and so trying to mobilize our community to see beyond our need to just survive and ensure the survival for our communities for generations is one that our organization, Micronesia Climate Change Alliance, has been very creative around. And this QR code and this movement for peace and climate justice is one that we definitely are finding a lot of purpose in and being guided by our ancestral wisdom and connecting to people like you across the world that affirm this work is important and affirm the need to hold on to what is life-giving and what is and will ultimately bring peace and liberation to our people and to all people across the world. And so I thank you again for including me in this conversation and uplifting the struggle of us in Mariana Islands and in Micronesia. Those are smart things.
Thank you, Monieka. I think the work that you're doing is so critical. You said the Marianas Islands are sometimes referred to as the tip of the spear, but I think for the imperialists, but it also is such a, a tip of the spear for people's resistance in defending and protecting the land and water and people of the region. So yeah, your work that's deeply anti-colonial is really incredible, to mobilize people and stand up and fight back against this onslaught of military expansion that's happening there. There's, yeah, there can't be any more sacrifice zones. People aren't sacrifice zones for these wars. So, yeah, thank you so much for bringing that wisdom into this space. And we're excited to keep building stronger and stronger ties with the region and your organization. So thank you for being here. Um, Yes, we're going to actually take a moment to hear a cultural performance recorded so that we can yeah, process the information that's happening and continue to strengthen ourselves and fortify our movements. We have the opportunity now to hear a recording of a musical production that was put together by Mopasol and other groups in Argentina. And it's a song about US war crimes and crimes against humanity. Um, August 9th is also an International Day of Action against crimes against humanity. And so we'll take a few minutes to hear this piece before we hear from our final speaker. So yes, thank you to the artists and to Mopasol for its work in Argentina against US militarism and for this music.
Crímenes, imágenes, rehenes, especímenes, humanos sin humanidad, el peor de los regímenes. Reciben en sus arcas el fruto del esfuerzo al que suscribe el planeta errante, todas las naciones, 12 portaaviones, garantes del constante seguimiento, sumiso, suplicio, suplicio de millones de almas tomadas sin permiso. No hay quien calme su hambre en la ceremonia hacia el dominio. Piedra roja color sangre en camino hacia el exterminio. Demonios con una Biblia en la mano, tomando el pie humano del continente africano, servidumbre. En nombre de la luz, sucumbe otro esclavo que se clavó en esa cruz. Pueblos supremacistas erigidos, quién sabe por quién ungidos. Los estados sean unidos, van a estar encima. ¿Hasta cuándo nuestra tierra será objeto de subasta? Encima. Para desacárate tantos sueños hasta basta hasta que llegamos a este ojo del ser humano y más temprano que tarde, tarde, tarde. Pero anda, expansionismo el sur, robo de territorio, lobo, definitorio, lobo, premonitorio, lobo, el dios Sam, el tío Tom, sin antídoto, sin equívoco, poco a poco sí o no, injerencia, herencia. En las malas costumbres de asesinar civiles sin clemencia, en la cumbre de la ciencia, cambiando el significado para siempre de la palabra violencia. Grabadas en la retina de las masas, la masacre de Nagasaki y Hiroshima. Multitudes se calcinan en la hoguera del Nerón americano. Comenzó el circo romano. Y ahora, ¿quién para la fiera? En carrera hacia la atmósfera y la esfera, y ahora y vocifera, reserva federal será la deidad que abra el camino hacia una nueva era. ¿Hasta cuándo nuestra tierra será objeto de subasta? La cabeza caja de tantos sueños adapta. Basta hasta que llegamos, es tiempo del ser humano. Y más temprano que tarde, tarde, tarde. Pero acá de Vietnam, Filipinas, Kosovo, Libia, Irak, Nicaragua, Afganistán, Siria, por Haití, los Balcanes pasearon Valquirias, entre barras y estrellas, hijas de la alquimia. Marines consagrados en la escritura del nuevo libro sagrado dedicado a la tortura, dictadura, batió el parche definiéndose su ratio y los hijos de Bolívar habitantes de su patio. El plan Cóndor sobrevolando su atrio, tanta vida arrebatada luchando por sueños patrios, desaparecidos. Gritos agónicos, terreno despejado para su plan económico, endeudamiento crónico con hipótesis teóricos, miseria y hambre bajo argumentos retóricos. Una guerra y otra guerra, otro clavo al ataúd y otra historia mal contada, propaganda y Hollywood. Bloqueo a Cuba y Venezuela, delitos en Guantánamo, otro video donde vuelan una escuela. Magnicidios, terrorismo, venta de armas, de migrantes, ver la jaula donde encierran al migrante. Mienten y traman golpe de Estado. Sonríen al ver al pueblo palestino masacrado. Esta canción podría durar horas. Julian Assange, Alex Sabe, la apartheid, las cárceles llenas, la salud como negocio, tantas familias que lloran. Algún día ese imperio caerá. Hasta pronto. Hasta el próximo 9 de agosto.
That's right. El imperio se va a caer. The empire will fall. And we've had enough. We're saying basta, enough of these war crimes, enough of these war games, enough of the massacres, enough of the weapons industry. The people have had enough, and that's why we're here together today to expose the crimes, to come together, to unite our struggles, to wage campaigns, and to put up a people's resistance to always fight back against US-led war. So thank you again for the video and for the work of the Argentinian comrades making this important statement. That brings us to our final speaker that we have today. As we get ready to close out the conversation, we'll hear from Anne Wright. She sent in a recording for us as she is traveling right now. Anne is a retired U.S. Army colonel and former U.S. diplomat. She has been a prominent figure in the Gaza Freedom Flotilla movement, and we send our full solidarity with the flotillas that are trying to break the Israeli blockade and deliver aid to the people who are starving in Gaza. Uh, she was part of the 2015 crossing of the demilitarized zone in Korea and part of the Merchants of Death War Crimes Tribunal. She resigned from the military in 2003 in opposition to the US war on Iraq. She received the State Department's Award for Heroism for her actions during the civil war in Sierra Leone, and she is a co-author of Dissent, Voices of Conscience. So we'll get a chance to hear a recorded video from Anne. We'll give our tech a second to pull it up.
On the international part of it, Veterans for Peace is one of them. So I've been asked to talk about a couple of things. One of them, the how do we build a mobilization to stop these horrible nuclear weapons and the threats that our own nation is, threatening everybody. We have them, we make use them on North Korea, China, Russia, you name it. The U.S. attack on the Iranian facilities that are not nuclear weapons facilities, but after what Israel and the U.S. is doing to them, one would anticipate maybe they just might decide to use some of that enriched uranium to make a weapon. We hope not, because that just leads to more trouble. So how do we stop this? How do we build a mobilization to stop worldwide, stop these nuclear weapons? For us here in the United States, where we have, along with Russia, the most nuclear weapons, our arsenals are on air trigger alert on submarines that have nuclear tipped missiles. We have land-based missiles with nuclear weapons. We have tactical nuclear weapons that could be exploded by young kids out on a battlefield. So it's really important that we try to mobilize as many as we can in our own country. And if the US can get a good mobilization going, other countries will follow suit. In fact, we might want to follow suit with some of them. One of the things that happened this summer was that at Lakenheath Air Base in the UK, there was a peace camp, a mobilization for almost 2 weeks on the fact that the U.S. is putting nuclear weapons back in the UK after they had been exiled. The weapons have been exiled since the 1980s, and now the British government has okayed that the U.S. will send nuclear weapons in there to join the U.S. nuclear weapons that are in the Netherlands, Germany, Turkey, and Italy. So what do we do? What can we do? Well, of course, we have our little signs that are on the street corners. We have certain mobilizations in the cities at times. We have people coming all the way to Hiroshima and Nagasaki to commemorate what happened and what the results are if these nuclear weapons are used. In fact, I'm here speaking at an international conference in Hiroshima for the next 2 days, 3 days, and then we go to Nagasaki to have an international conference there. And I'll be joined by people from around the world, except for the Nepalese who were denied entry into Japan last night. So what can we do to do something, something dramatic? I mean, a peace camp at an Air Force base in England? Well, it got some publicity. The things that we've done in the past, and not to say that the past is the predictor of the future, but the things that if you look back on the history of trying to stop nuclear weapons, the things that will always come up are big, big national mobilizations that had dramatic scenes in them. And one of them was I think it was the Rocky Mountain Flats, where there were like 3,000 people that encircled a whole area. I think we need to be doing that. I think we need to be either going to Oak Ridge, Tennessee, where we had 3 people that climbed fences, including an 80-year-old nun with a heart condition. And this was about 10 years ago. They climbed the fences and slowly walked to the place where most nuclear materials were being kept in Oak Ridge. Didn't even get stopped. It shows the lack of security we have on our nuclear weapons program. We've had numerous instances where people have climbed the fences, gone over, and then had to call the military police saying, "It's raining, we're cold, we're here, you guys don't know what you're doing." And that was showing the lack of security on these things. So I would say that some of the things that we could do is to have a mobilization, either down at Los Alamos, where they do have in August of every year. In fact, this week they'll be having another mobilization, but it's not a big mobilization. So I think the Resist group can join other groups to try to get a big, big, big mobilization. And whether it's in Los Alamos, whether it's at Oak Ridge, whether it's one of the last ones that we had was on nuclear submarines down in Georgia. So pick a place and let's get thousands of people to be there. And we need to, because the U.S. is spending almost $1 billion. No, wait a minute. It's a trip. How much is it? $1 billion in the refurbishment of these nuclear weapons. And refurbishment, meaning they say we're not building new ones, but the ones that we've got, we're just going to somehow test them, and if they need test them supposedly without putting them underground or in the air, not exploding them, but somehow doing tests that show how they can improve them. Like you need to improve something that's going to blow the hell out of the world anyway. I mean, the use of one of those by any country means that everybody else is going to start firing those weapons. So if one country uses them, we're all dead meat. So that's the reason we have to be so aware of what is happening and try to stop this. Nuclear policies, well, and new ones. Well, the new one, I think, is we just redo the ones that we've got, and we keep threatening people with them. There's not a lot of change to U.S. nuclear policies. Trying to get the U.S. to say no first use. We, the United States, would not do first use. If you look at the number of congressmen and women that are really helping out on this, it's a handful. I think it's like 20 that have signed this House Resolution 317, I believe it is, that Jim McGovern and Congresswoman from Hawaii, Jill Takuda, wrote. And it's got a whole list of things that we, the U.S., should be doing, which is negotiate with other countries to try to get rid of more of these weapons, which was done in the 1980s with Reagan and Gorbachev, for God's sakes. Ronald Reagan helped get rid of a lot of these thousands of nuclear weapons. So trying to put pressure on any administration, whether it's Democrat or Republican, is well worth it. It's a tough sell, as all of us who have been in the U.S. Congress over these last decades, and particularly since the genocide of Gaza has been going on. I mean, it is a ruthless, mean institution that U.S. Congress is. But we have to keep after it, and we have to push for people to be elected into our Congress that have the the right outlook on life. Like life should continue, and it shouldn't be genocided, and it shouldn't be nuked to death. So that's my short and sweet analysis. I'm here in Hiroshima in this little hotel room after a long flight, 14 hours to get here, then Tokyo interrogation and immigration and customs, then flying to Osaka, then taking the bullet train from Osaka to Hiroshima. So I'm pooped, but we shall continue. We've got to keep moving on all this. So thanks so much for having the conference, and I look forward to seeing it all on video. Take care. No nukes, no nukes, and free Palestine. Stop the genocide. Thank you.
Free Palestine. Thank you, Anne. Um, really happy that we got her video here. And it's so critical to have representatives who have defied their military commitments in order to really stand on the side of a just and lasting peace. Um, when Anne speaks about the history of mass mobilizations against nuclear weapons, it's true. We need to rebuild and strengthen a militant mass movement against US nuclear weapons. We need to block the modernization plans. And no matter what point on the supply chain, whether it's testing in Nevada, whether it's uranium mining on Navajo land, whether it is the storing of nuclear weapons and subs or in silos, those are all opportunities for us to take a range of actions to mobilize against US nuclear threats. We can't have another $2 trillion in the direction of US imperialism and mutually assured destruction. So, thank you, Anne, for the contribution. And we're looking forward to the mobilizations and commemorations in Hiroshima in a couple of days. We had one more speaker planned. We'll have to release her video after the fact. Faye Sershal was not able to join us due to some technical difficulties, but we'll send out a video in addition to this recording very soon. So that brings us to the calls to action for today's Speak Out. As we've heard from people, all of our speakers today, when it comes to nuclear weapons, the real threat to the world's people and life on this planet is US imperialism. The US war machine has been at the head of the imperialist system for decades and is the main perpetrator and provocateur of nuclear proliferation. And from conception to detonation, from all along the supply chain of production, from cradle to grave, the US brought these nuclear weapons into the world and then decided to arm its allies and threatened to use them to impose its will wherever it pleases. But the people say no. Even though the UN Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, one of the tools to make nuclear weapons illegal, has 95 signatory states, without forcing the United States to dismantle its nuclear arsenal, we'll never see a nuclear-free world. We must understand that the US refuses to give up its arsenal. It's plowing instead headfirst into a potential nuclear catastrophe with nuclear flashpoints on all major fronts of US war. And it's really going to be a result of an imperialist agenda if we face that nuclear catastrophe. The solution is not to impose disarmament on oppressed nations. Iran, the DPRK have the right to enrich uranium and make nuclear weapons for self-defense in the face of standing up against the world's biggest terrorist, the United States of America. And we will continue the fight towards the complete dismantling of the imperialist war machine and its nuclear terror apparatus, but we must start with the United States. Um, True peace can really only come through the total defeat of US imperialism and its junior partners. This victory will require global solidarity and people relentlessly struggling for just peace. So, thank you to everyone for attending our Speak Out today. We have some resources here that we've produced. There's a poster in commemoration of this 80th anniversary. Resist imperialist nuclear threats from Hiroshima to Tehran, stop the US war machine. So please use this poster, distribute it, print it. And then we have a primer also available for download, which will cover these analysis points. So if you're going to commemoration events, mass mobilizations, feel free to take these resources with you to share about this discussion. Next slide, please. We also invite you to engage with our network, Resist US-Led War. We invite everyone here, if you haven't yet joined Resist, and you agree with the 2 points of unity, like we heard today, the need to resist US-led war and build just peace has always been great and has never been greater than today. So we invite you to join us. We have a network meeting that everyone is invited to August 24th, 4 p.m. Pacific, in the US, so morning time in Asia Pacific. And we also invite anyone who can and wants to support this mass movement building to make a donation to resist US-led war. Next slide, please. And then concretely, let's hit the streets together wherever we are in the world. These are some upcoming actions just in the next few weeks, but we want to cultivate an ongoing network and group of organizations who can mobilize in solidarity with the campaigns that are coordinated at the global level between all of our different struggles. So please join Noruto in taking action for the US out of Korea campaign, August 15th. We'll send out more information about that. August 6th and August 9th, join actions wherever you are for the anniversary of the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and continue to uplift the call to resist imperialist nuclear threats wherever we go. And then we also invite folks to take action on Indigenous Peoples Day, August 9. There are actions hosted by the IPM SDL, Louder Than Bombs, Indigenous Peoples Global Day of Action. And there's more information we can send out about these concrete actions to take. But let's get to the point where we, like so many of our brothers and sisters and siblings around the world, are mobilizing in the millions for a free Palestine, for a liberated Korea, to demilitarize Japan, for a peaceful Pacific, and around the world, um, for a true and genuine lasting peace with US imperialism in the rearview mirror. So thank you for joining our Speak Out today. I hope you leave inspired and uplifted by the courageous struggles that we're hearing from Korea to the Marianas to Japan to Iran and all over the globe. To learn more about our work and continue to connect, you can follow Resist US-Led War Movement And we look forward to seeing you in the struggle. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good day.